In economics, they often talk about priorities. It's called a guns versus butter debate. These are metaphors for weapons and food. Every country must make this difficult choice. Do they need weapons or do they need more food? The last year taught us that we need hospitals. The public health infrastructure was simply inadequate all over the world. In fact, it still is. The world needs to invest a lot more in the health sector, but its priorities appear to be elsewhere. The world's military spending is rising unchecked. Last year, it almost touched $2 trillion. Let me put that figure in context. The global military budget grew 2.26% in the year of the pandemic, 2.26%, while the global GDP shrank 4.4%. So even in the middle of a recession, defense budgets expanded. If we look closely at these numbers, there are some interesting trends. And these trends tell you why nations are arming in the middle of a pandemic. Trend number one, the big five spenders have marked out their territory: the US, Russia, China, UK and India. They make up 62% of total spending. In many ways, this represents the new geopolitical reality. These five countries are the five pillars of an emerging multipolar world. Trend number two, China is arming, and it's arming fast. Beijing spent $252 billion on defense last year, $252 billion. Their military budget has grown for the 26th consecutive year. You see, piracy on the high seas can be an expensive affair. Despite the spending spree, China is yet to catch up with the US, which brings us to trend number three. America spent $778 billion on defense. That's around 39% of global military spending. And most of this, and this is important, most of this went into research and development. You see, Chinese war machines are much newer than America's, so modernization was their focus in 2020. Trend number four, NATO is stepping up. NATO countries are required to spend at least 2% of their GDP on defense. This was Donald Trump's pet peeve. He constantly complained about Europe not meeting this threshold. Well, it's finally happened. In 2019, only 9 NATO members hit their target. Last year, 12 of them did. That's an improvement. If you put these four trends together, it is clear what is happening. Conflicts have continued despite the pandemic. In fact, they have deepened. Just look at the South China Sea. Beijing used the pandemic to militarize this region. It launched a Cold War in the middle of a public health crisis. On Sunday, Chinese state media reported new additions to Beijing's fleet. 3 new warships have been commissioned. One of them is an amphibious assault ship that could be deployed near Taiwan. The other 2 are a destroyer and a nuclear submarine, and all 3 of them will be deployed in the South China Sea. And do not forget, hundreds of PLA vessels are already sailing in disputed water. So the message from China is clear. It wants an escalation. It wants to test the resolve of the democratic alliance. How have they responded? With deployments of their own. Britain's HMS Queen Elizabeth is all set to lead a strike group to the South China Sea. The voyage route is guaranteed to rile up the Chinese. The ship will visit India and Singapore. It will then sail through the South China Sea before visiting Japan and South Korea. And this voyage is all about messaging. It is being called the biggest fleet to leave Britain in a generation. Along the way, allies are also expected to join. There are joint drills scheduled with Japan, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, France, Italy, Turkey and India. This is Britain's arrival in the Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Boris Johnson talked about playing a greater role in East Asia. Well, this is his big-ticket mission. Britain's entry at this point is crucial. The Philippines and the US have just concluded a military drill. It is important to keep that momentum going. Plus, military presence in the South China Sea is an insurance for Taiwan. On Monday, Australia's Defence Minister sounded a warning. He said the world must not discount the threat of a conflict between Taiwan and China. The threat is real and imminent. So that's what the most volatile theatre of world politics looks like right now. China spoiling for a war and a defined democratic alliance fighting for a rules-based order. In this context, the defence spending report makes complete sense. Countries spent more because they felt threatened. India faced Chinese aggression In eastern Ladakh, the US wants protection against Chinese cyber attacks. Japan and South Korea do not want the PLA patrols on their horizon. Pandemic or not, conflicts continue to fester, and in conflicts, guns are way more useful than butter. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.